things about the Regis community that I've been really happy to be part of over these last almost 2 years now, not almost, is just how much we intersect with one another in ways that we're not really aware of. And so I'm honored to be able to read the following letter. This letter was written by Kathy Jenkins' grandmother, Alice. It was sent through frontline mail, mail service at or around World War II, and it caught there. So her mom wanted other mothers and children who were suffering while their husbands and fathers were away during World War II to get a glimpse of someone who was there. Oh, I have to talk. Do I need to? No. All right, so as I've told everyone, I have 3 voices: a quiet voice, a somewhat more stern voice, and then drill sergeant voice, and I try and avoid the last 2. So long as we're all aware of that, we'll be good to go. No, so this letter is actually given to us by Kathy Jenkins. It was actually a letter written to her grandmother during World War II. And this letter is radically important. I never knew this about Kathy, so for her to share this with me and then share it to the larger community, those are our values. That is what we do at Regis College. And so once it was written, she wanted to share it to other mothers and children so they can kind of get a viewpoint into a person, at that point World War II men and women, who had been deployed into a war zone. November 11th, 1942. From my grandfather Warren Myers to my mother Patricia, who was 8 years old at the time, he wanted my grandmother Alice to read her this letter. Warren ended up being shot somewhere in Germany in 1945 and was treated with sulfa medicine, but he was not given any water at the field hospital. Ultimately, after the war was over, he started to experience medical issues, and as it turns out, the sulfa medication had ruined his kidneys, and he died when he was 37, and my mother was 14 at the time. My mother is still alive, and she's 88 years old, and still holds this letter very close to her heart after 80 years. Today is Armistice Day. That means the last war was called off 24 years ago today. I was smaller than you are now at that time, but I can remember it real well. Bells rang, people were all excited, laughing, crying, and cheering. It left an impression on my mind. I wonder if you'll be impressed the same way as a little girl as I was as a little boy 24 years ago. I often wonder if it wouldn't have been easy, wouldn't have been better, not to have had an armistice in 1918, but to finish the job once and for all. It would have saved me from leaving you. It would have saved thousands more like me who will be called. There's an undercurrent in the Army today. I don't know, it isn't talk, as nobody ever mentions it, but there's a grimness about everyone who seems to say, this time it will be finished, and finished right. Why should little Billy and others his age have to leave everyone and everything they love in another 20 years to finish what your daddy and other kids' daddies can do just as well? Finish now, if only given the opportunity. I am no hero. I never laid any claims to being one, but I believe in this country, and I believe in its teachings. Yes, my eyes aren't closed. I know there are plenty of wrongs, but fundamentally, this country is right. Always has, and always will be. You must believe this. You must always talk down to those who disbelieve. You are an American. I've never been so conscious or proud of that fact as I am today. Whatever comes or goes, I want you to understand what my feelings have been ever since this country was attacked. Now you know. Maybe you won't understand, maybe you will, but someday, when you're older, you'll feel the same as I do now, because you are an American. Well, Pat, that was a rather serious trend of thought, but don't let that bother you. You be a good girl and take care of your mother. You'll be proud of your daddy one of these days. Your daddy is proud of you right now. Maybe I shouldn't have written this letter the way I did, but I just wanted to show you the prime reason for me leaving you and joining the Army. It was an impulse prompted by what you just read. When this is way over, we'll all be together again, and I'll more than make up to you any lonesomeness that you have now while I'm away. With all my love, your dad. P.S. Tell your mother to read and explain this letter to you because it's yours personally. I'll write you later, sis. Love, W.
That beautiful letter referred to Armistice Day, which is what we call Veterans Day before we changed the name, and it was indeed the ending of World War I on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, which is why we celebrate Veterans Day on November 11th now. The piece that the singers will be singing for you just now is from a poem called In Flanders Fields, written by a participant in World War I. And it mentions the poppies. You notice that many people might wear red kins or get red flowers on Veterans Day. Those poppies date back to flowers that combatants saw in Europe during World War I.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to be with you today for this Veterans Day ceremony is always very emotional for me. A special thanks to the Children's Center for leading us in this Pledge of Allegiance. And of course, as I've already said, thank you to the Glee Singers. And to Kathy Jenkins for sharing that letter from her grandmother and her grandfather. To all the veterans in our community, thank you for your service. I speak for everyone at Regis when I say you have sacrificed for our country. Thank you. Today, we recognize more than your service. We recognize the selfless sacrifice you made to put our country and freedom before self. Regis is honored to have veterans among our staff, faculty, and student body. I am so proud of the work Nick and the Center for Veteran and Military Family Services does to help veterans and military-connected learners. Many are unaware of how to effectively navigate their educational benefits. This is a national problem that we at Regis have taken very seriously by creating the Center for Veterans and Military Family Services in 2019. Probably not soon enough, but at least we did it. In order to honor our veterans, we must provide them with stability in their educational journey and support system that honors the value of their sacrifice. Service is a core characteristic of the military, and it remains a core component throughout the life, even after leaving active duty. I love listening to the stories, and again, thank you for your service. Service is central to the Regis mission, and service to the dear neighbor without distinction is a core value we are honored to practice every day. Our inclusive community welcomes veterans from all backgrounds who enrich our community and classrooms. We currently have 95 military-connected students who are members of the Regis family. 55 of you are veterans. 6 are active, Guard, and Reserve service members. I am proud Regis is a military-friendly institution and offers a number of benefits, including our participation in the Yellow Ribbon Program and our work with the GI Bill. Our Veterans Center is in St. Joseph's Hall, and we'll make it look better next time. Provides students a dedicated space to study or meet with fellow veterans. There, you will find no better champion than our Nick Lanier. Thank you, Nick, for your incredible service to our country, for your continued service to support veterans, and the work you do for Regis every day. We are honored to have you as a member of the Regis family. Thank you for your service.
Those moments in life where you're not quite sure how to follow up. There you go. Actually, today I am honored with our guest speaker. Colonel retired Pete Kelly was in the United States Army from 1958 until 1984. Let that sink in for a quick minute. A life of service, this is what we're talking about. In fact, Pete is an Army veteran, and as such, he deployed to Vietnam twice. And this is kind of what got me. I was joking with one of my fellow veterans here on campus where he starts to say, here's some of the awards and decorations. So, look at me. No, so Pete received 5 Bronze Stars. Yeah, 5 Air Medals, 2 Legion of Merits, and then an award that was given to him by the country of Vietnam in showing their support, of his service to their country. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce our guest speaker, Colonel Retired Pete Kelly.
Thank you, Nick.
Sir.
You hear me all right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe you don't need the mic, but Happy Veterans Day, day early. You're off tomorrow, I think, most of you, holiday. Someone quietly, I think, mentioned earlier that Veterans Day initially was known as Armistice Day. Started back in 1918, following the end of World War II on the 11th hour, 11th day, 11th month of November. Subsequently, as I say, then it was known as Armistice Day. Subsequently, in 1954, President Eisenhower changed it to Veterans Day, indicating that, and if you note the correct spelling, sometimes it's not spelled correctly, there's no apostrophe in the veterans, because it's not a case of owning something, it's a case of honoring all veterans who served. There are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons for joining the military, probably too many to mention here. In my case, I felt it would give me a chance to assume a leadership position as a civilian. I had a degree in accounting from DC, much earlier than I might have had I stayed with accounting over the long term. Accountants don't make great leaders, I don't think. In any event, we talk about service. I have 2 other brothers, both of whom served in the infantry, as I did. But among the 3 of us, total time, counting reserve service, approaches 50 years for our 3 brothers. Service on the other side, I had 2 sisters, one still as a nun, St. Joseph Order. Another one decided to get out after X number of years. And the 3rd sister that I have did her job with 9 children. So they all contributed in some manner. I can't point to anything in our family background, tradition, history that pointed us to service, but I think with the 50 years for my brothers, service to God for my sisters, we've done our part on that end of it. At Regis today brings back a couple of memories for me. My first date as a BC freshman was with a girl at Regis College. At the time, I had no car, and so my best friend at BC, subsequently my best man at my wedding, did have a car, agreed to ferry me and the date to wherever we were going that particular night. What I didn't know, your mind gets fuzzy when you get to be old. I don't know why I didn't know, but she was not a resident student here. She lived in Amesbury, Massachusetts. So I don't think I need to say that my friend decided that it was going to be a one date with that girl, and that was the end of it. The youngest sister is a graduate of Regis College, nun for X number, 60 odd years now, but she graduated from here. Her best friend, subsequently one of my dearest friends, was the dean of students here, Sister Zeta Fleming, from 1977 to 87. She and I are very, very close friends. On Veterans Day, some of you may think that maybe that might be something that would be of interest to you. Male or female now, back when I was talking, it was mostly male, but now women have a large part in the military forces. I think it would be a good fit for you if, one, you're a team player. You don't have to work alone. You can work with other people. Secondly, if you don't always have to be the leader, i.e. you can work in a subordinate role, it might be a good fit. If making money is key, then maybe it's not a good fit. And I'll give you a personal example, and it's changed drastically. When I started, a second lieutenant made $222.30 a month. Not all, but you got $47.88 to live on for food. And if you were married, you got $85.50 for quarters, living quarters, where you'd live. If you were single, you got $68.40, but generally if you're single, you went to a BOQ, and that took care of everything. That worked out to be about $42.68 a year for your pay. It's changed. Today, well, before I get to that, let me mention one other thing about the money back then. $222.30 a month. It was always paid on the last day of the month. I can assure you that many months, on the last few days, my wife and I had many varieties of Kraft macaroni and cheese. Good month, you might have some mushrooms in them, or even cherry tomatoes. Kraft macaroni and cheese then was 13 cents a box. Today when I looked, it's $1.25. I don't eat Kraft macaroni and cheese anymore. But today, the pay is much better, as I mentioned earlier. A second lieutenant today gets $34.77 a month in base pay. The subsistence is $280 and change. And the quarters allowance, if you are married, is $1,768. That works out to be about $66,313 a year, as opposed to when I started at $42.68. So money is not the driving force, it shouldn't be the driving force for going in the military, but it's a big jump from what it was X number of years ago. In the military, you get to experience a lot of different things that you might not as a civilian. Again, if I can go back to my own experiences, in May of June of '58, within 8 to 10 days of each other, I was commissioned a second lieutenant from Boston College, graduated from college, BC, got married, went on a week's honeymoon, and the next day, returning home, left to go to Fort Benning, Georgia, for my basic training for infantry, to be an infantry officer. When I got down there, my wife was left at home because I didn't know any better. When I get down there, end of the first day, I noticed officers leaving post. And I checked around and found out where they were going. They had brought their wives down to stay off post. As I say, I had no car then. So behind me in the ranks were two black officers, one of whom had a car. I said, would you mind driving me around Columbus? I have a list of apartments available for rent. Maybe I can get a place to get my wife in. No, I'd be happy to do that for you. We go to the first place. Three of us go to the door. Hear about the apartment. Looks at us. Apartment's been taken. Oh. Go to the second place. This is Columbus, Georgia, 1958. Second place. Hear about the apartment. Three of us. Apartment's gone. Go to the third one. One of the two, I forget who, said, we'll sit in the car. You go up there. At the place, my wife joins me. We lived happily ever after, hopefully. First black officer, name was Herman Price. Herman Price finished his infantry training, went on to medical school, and became a heart surgeon who later in life operated or worked with people that worked on President Eisenhower's heart problems. Second officer, you may know the name a little bit better, Colin Powell. Colin Powell became the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, subsequently appointed by President Bush to be the Secretary of State, served 3 years there. We weren't close friends, but we stayed in touch. In fact, we served a year and a half, served as a bad term. We were together for a year and a half at George Washington University, where the Army was paying for us to both get master's degrees in business administration. So we had a connection over time. Some of you may not view the following as a benefit. I did, and I do. And that's the constant changing of your assignments in the military. You may be in one place for 2 years, uprooted, go somewhere else, be there 3 years, uprooted, go somewhere else, and that continues for your career. I consider it an opportunity for myself and my family because it gave us a chance to see some things that you might not ordinarily see as a civilian. I think my children would agree with me. I have 4 children. When they thought I was not listening or couldn't hear them, I would hear them talk to their friends about how excited they were to see Michelangelo's David in Florence. In summary, then, I consider the military to be a great benefit to me and to my family. It isn't a lifestyle that necessarily will fit everyone's mode, but for those whom it does fit, it's a great opportunity. Now, if anything that I might have said this morning generates questions in your mind or things that you might want to pursue further, Nick is the guy on campus here for you. I can answer all the questions you have and lead you straight and narrow. His number, you probably have it. I'm not going to give it out. Okay. And I thank you very much for giving me a few minutes of your time. I know you're very busy. And Joel, knock them dead on those grades, girls. Men.
See, this is what I love about being a veteran, right? Like honestly, he's telling his story, I'm going, yeah, I lived at Fort Benning. I know where, I went to Dexter Elementary School. Like, we could probably talk about the same places and understand. That's a lot of years apart. Right, it's really fun when veterans get together and to see this on occasion. What we experience transcends space and time. I was sharing with Pete before we finished this up. I was sharing with Pete, when I first came back from Iraq in 2006, many of my family were like, oh, how you doing? You're great, it's good to be home. It was a phone call from my grandfather, who had served in Korea in 1951. So he was a company commander when the Chinese crossed the Yalu. And if you're not sure of that, look up the history. And I remember this phone call clearly. He goes, forgive the vernacular, but he goes, so Nick, how was the suck? And immediately I knew what he was talking about. Like on a very deep and profound level, my fire back goes, well, it wasn't as bad as when you were trying to get away from the Chosin Reservoir. He's like, yeah, ha, 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 funny. That's what happens. We have this commonality, and that's what really brings the humanity to service. So as we look at it today, as we finish this event, I want you to think on the humanity of those who serve. Because service is not ideological. Service is not political. It's American. This is what we do. And we're at Regis. And this is what we do. Before you leave, I'd like you to take a chance. We have the fallen comrade table up to my right, your left. That's a part of military culture. There's an explainer next to it. Please feel free to do so. Also, we have food in the back because I'm kind of hungry. And if you don't eat, that's great as well. But thank you so very much for attending. Thank you so much, President Hayes, Colonel Kelly. We'll certainly talk again. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thank you.